this is where I start. It's called the Pig Track, and it's a short, steep, sharp climb. The weather, even though it looks a bit cloudy at the moment, is meant to be clear and maybe even sunny on the top, with a very small chance of rain, but who knows. This is a Llanberis Pass, and thousands of years ago, if not more, a huge great river of ice gouged out this valley. The weather is clearing from the other end of the pass as far as I can see, and we should have a much better day when we're higher up. If you look straight ahead of you, you can see trees. That means that trees can actually grow up here. Looking around at the countryside here, mostly because of the sheep that have grazed in these hills and mountains, there are no trees around here. Just lots of grass and rocks. There's quartz there, that's the white stone, and a mixture of slate and I think granite. A lot of our weather comes in from the western side of Britain, from the Atlantic, and the weather that comes in from that side, from over the ocean, is usually wet. Now, clouds don't give up their rain until they rise a little. So if you're up in the mountains, there's a lot more rain, and the rain has to go somewhere. So all over the mountain you'll find streams like this. Again, you can see the Llanberis Valley here, and the way that the ice rivers, the glaciers, have scraped away the sides of these mountains. I said when I showed you all my equipment that these mountains in Wales are very old mountains. The ones in Nepal, like Everest, are much newer mountains. Hundreds of thousands of years ago, most of Britain was covered in ice, and the ice scraped away the tops of a lot of the mountains, which is why you have this rounded valley. And every now and then, when the ice stopped for a moment, there'd be a lake like Llanberis, the lake straight ahead of us here. You can see the clouds are actually floating along the valley, so the mountains go higher than the clouds. You also see that the wind is blowing the clouds along. It feels very still where I am now, because I am in what is called the lee of the mountain, and the lee means that I'm sheltered by the mountain beside me from the wind, which when I go over the top of this mountain, which is a very small one, I will hit, or I will be hit by the wind. Let's see when I get over the top. I've been walking for about 30 minutes, half an hour. I started off at 8:15. What time do you think it is now? You can still see where I was staying, right in the distance, but it's flat, or relatively flat so far. As you look round, I'm going to have to climb even more steeply now. Just stepped over what's called the shoulder of the mountain. There are two men who've decided to go up that bit, which is a very, very sharp ridge called Crib Goch, and I'll show you in the classroom what that's like. Now we've stepped into, it's almost like a horseshoe of mountains, a ridge that runs all the way around there. And again, this is where a glacier once ran all the way down this valley, stopping as it went to carve out lakes on its way down to the lowest ground. And at the bottom of glaciers, you'll find great big piles of rubble, except you would call them hills. These are what the glaciers left when they melted away. Because the snow can pile so high, every now and then you'll find piles of stones or tall rocks like this one with signposts On this one it says Snowdon, but it also says Erdwyddfa, and Erdwyddfa is the Welsh for, I think, the eagle, because they have a different name to the name that we have in English. Down at the bottom of the valley you can see a winding path that is nothing like as steep. This is called the miner's path, because these mountains weren't just dangerous, they were also places where men could find treasure like tin and slate, the stone sheets that cover many of your roofs, the roofs of your houses. And 100, 150, 200 years ago, the men would have walked up here to their work and then would have brought all the metal and the stone back out of these mountains to be sold in the lowlands further down. There is one treasure buried deep in these mountains that you might not have heard of, and in fact Prince Charles gave some of this to his wife, Princess Diana, who was Princess of Wales, and it was gold, Welsh gold, a special rosy coloured gold that is found in mountains like these. In fact, I was wrong about the weather. Where I was before in the Llanberis Pass was slightly more windy than it is here. I'm being sheltered by those rocks up there from the wind on the other side in that valley. In this valley, it's quite calm. All you can hear are the many streams running down from the mountains into those lakes. Sometimes it's not feet that smooth the stones, but constantly running water. Water for thousands, tens of thousands of years, running down, wearing out the rocks as it passes. And sometimes people need a bit of a helping hand to get across water like this. And again, volunteers have made this bridge for us. If you remember that for a lot of the year it's either very wet or very cold, plants can find it quite hard to live up here. So you find hiding under rocks or behind rocks tiny little plants like these alpines. There's quite a lot of grass, and there's very rough grass that can survive the ice and the snow and all the sheep nibbling at it. You also find, hiding underneath rocks, some of the world's oldest plants, ferns. These ferns were around when the dinosaurs were here, survived the Great Ice Age, and are with us now. Even though some of these mighty ridges around us are out of the cloud now, and we're promised a high chance that the top of Snowdon will be free of cloud, at the moment the eagle's nest, the mighty eagle's nest, is still cloaked in cloud. I just hope that by the time I get to the top of it, I'll be able to show you the whole of this beautiful horseshoe. It's strange that in the game of rock, paper, scissors, there is no place for water, because water is far mightier than rock. First of all, as I've said, it wears it away, but it also creeps into the cracks in rocks, and then when it freezes, the water turns to ice, and ice takes up more space than the water, and it splits the rocks. So these cracks in the rocks you can see here were created by water that sneaked in, froze, expanded, and then shattered the rocks. Sometimes, rather than in small streams, the water comes down the mountain in great sheets, as it is here. You can see more clearly the cracks made by the water getting into the rock freezing and then expanding. You can also see little pockets where the water has puddled, expanded and worn out small grooves in the rocks, and where now mosses and grass cling. You might be wondering why someone would leave a pile of stones like this here along a path, until you look over the top and see that there is a big drop. In winter, all you can see sometimes are these piles of stones, and it's the only thing that warns you that you're coming close to the edge and you may fall down and hurt yourself quite a lot. Here we are now at the foot of Snowdon with another lake. This one is called Glaslyn, and it's where the glacier came down, and the top there carved a groove before carrying on along there. Some of these mountains were named by the people who lived here hundreds, if not thousands of years ago, after kings. These were like the seats, the thrones of mighty kings of old. There are the shepherds whistling and shouting, "Come by," the instructions they're giving their sheepdogs. Yeah. It's a shame you can't smell it, but I can smell the coal smoke from that steam engine which is puffing behind the ridge there, the Snowdon Mountain Railway that chugs up and down in fair weather and mostly foul weather for most of the year, taking people who can't walk up and down to the top of the mountain there. Having rest here, and the cloud is mostly cleared, and you can see the valley spreading out and the hlins and the ridges of the horseshoe around the sides. This is the place where 15 years ago my daughter had to choose between what's in front of you, which was covered in black ice, slippery, thick ice, or down there, which now looks like a path but was covered in drifting snow. If she took this path, she might slip back down again. If she took that, she might fall all the way down there. She was 8 years old and she chose to take the snow. I couldn't help her, and then we made our way to the shoulder up there. If you could imagine, this here was covered in ice and was so slippery you could hardly walk on it. A little bit of selfie stuff here. I'm at the top, the shoulder of Snowdon. Behind me is the valley I've just walked up. That way is a path from Cribgoch. Just met two young men who tried to go up there but decided not to because they couldn't see in front of their faces and it was far too dangerous. If I turn round this way, behind me is the peak of Snowdon, and behind me there somewhere is the valley. Just coming up now, there's a train. This one isn't steam powered. It still means that people can get up to the top without having to walk. There's all the people taking it easy on the diesel train. You might have been wondering how on earth a train can make its way up the mountain, and the key is in these teeth here at the centre of the tracks. The train crawls its way up, cog by cog, tooth by tooth, along the railway. You might be able to hear what's coming through the mist here on its way down the mountain. Up here it feels like I'm on another planet. The peak comes into view and then disappears again. I don't know if you can see, there are people perched on the top of it, and now they're disappearing into the clouds again. There it is, the top of Snowdon. Cafe station to the right there, and on the top, people clinging to the rock. Well, this is the end of the journey. That's the top behind me, with what seems like hundreds of people, and we can see absolutely nothing because the cloud is sitting on the top of the mountain. That was the easier bit. This is the harder bit, walking all the way down. Well, it's just gone 2:30 and I'm back at my car. My feet are just beginning to ease now. I've undone my laces and it's a beautiful sunny day. My legs are going to hurt a lot because coming down hurts a lot more than going up. But I feel great that I've managed to climb the mountain again.